go through this chapter and understand exactly what Paul's trying to tell Timothy. So last week, those who were here, we understand that he went through the roles of the man and the woman. Now he's going to go more specifically in the roles of the church. Okay? So the office of the bishop and the office of the deacon and the general care of the church. Just generally, why is this important for us to understand, for us to know? The care of the church is actually in all our hands, not just the bishop or not just the deacon. It's actually in all our hands. For us to be in that care, we must understand first what the church is actually asking for us to do, what type of person it wants us to be, the attitude that we must entail, the thought process that we must entail, our actions, what it must look like, right? Because as the church, we represent Christ into the world. Yeah? We represent Christ to the world. So by us showing our faith, showing how strong we are, or showing our actions and our deeds and our intentions, that when the world sees us, they see Christ, who we represent. Right? So that's why when Paul talks to Timothy and gave him this instruction about exactly what is required from those who lead the church, it's actually an indicator of those who are in the church, what we must do and how we must follow Christ. Right? Because what do we call leaders? What are leaders? People that show us the way. Yeah? Strong leaders show us the way. They don't tell us the way, they show us the way. So we look at the best leaders in our church are ones who showed the way. Christ, he showed us the way. Yeah? St. Paul, he showed us the way. St. Athanasius, he showed us the way. These pillars of our church did not just write, but rather showed us the way on how one ought to live their life in the church with God. Okay? So that's the lens that I want us to look into today and have on while we're going through this. Because, like you might say, it's very, very straightforward. It is very, very straightforward. But the lens that we must look at is this lens. Yeah? So we'll start reading. This is a faithful saying. If a man desires the position of a bishop, he desires a good work. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, temperate, sober-minded, of good behavior, hospitable, able to teach, not given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not covetous. One who rules his own house well, having his children in submission and all reverence. For if a man does not know how to rule his own house, how will he take care of the church of God? Not a novice, lest being puffed up with pride, he fall in the same condemnation as the devil. Moreover, he must have a good testimony among those who are outside, lest he fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. Okay? So now we've got the office of the bishop, yeah? Of the episkopos, yeah? In Greek it means overseer, the one that sees from above. So when we talk about the bishop, we also talk about the priest, okay? The overseer of the church, the one that looks after everything, who's responsible for everything. Now, the bishop or the priest being responsible, the episkopos, the overseer of things, what must he entail? The first verse is like very controversial. We see it as controversial. Why? Why do we see it as controversial? What does it say? Right? We hear it all the time. Oh man, this person is chasing the office. He's chasing the office of the ranks in the church. He wants to be a priest. He wants to be a full deacon. He wants to be a bishop. He wants to lead the service. We hear it all the time. All the time. It's actually probably one of the biggest things that people have, like, they begrudge. That someone chasing the office of authority in the church. But what is St. Paul saying here? What's St. Paul saying? He's saying that the desire is what we're after. Yeah? The desire. Why is the desire important? So we got that, that's part of it. But the thing that we must understand in this desire for this office, or desire to be someone like that in the church, was service. The desire to serve. Right? Because we look at the priesthood or the rank of bishop in its nature, what is it? It's a dedication of their life to God. Right? And you speak to any priest or you speak to any bishop, they call themselves servants of the people, not leaders of the people. They see themselves as people that serve God's people. Right? They lead through their service. So when St. Paul's talking about this desire, is this desire to be and to serve God. He's very, very clear. And St. John Chrysostom talks about this, and he says, what is terrible is to desire the absolute authority and power of the bishop, not the work itself. The work of the bishop, the work of the priest, is something that we should all desire, to give our life to God, to visit the poor, the sick, the needy, to have time and give our tithes. That's what St. Paul is talking to us. That's what he's saying. This desire is something that we must all have. In its nature, it's very Christian, correct? In its nature, we talk about this all the time. Our desire to serve, our desire to be with God, our desire to love Him, our desire to be there and partake in the sacraments. The desire to partake in the community of the church, which is when we celebrate for someone, we celebrate. When we mourn, we mourn. When someone needs them by our side, we're there. This mystery of the church, that's what St. Paul is talking to us about. So that the person who's in this office does not desire its authority or its power, but its work, its service. Okay? Which then leads to what qualifies him for that. Yeah? And we'll go through them quickly. Yeah? So the first thing is the bishop must be blameless. Yeah? What does blameless mean? It's kind of an awkward one. But he's referring to not sinless, but blameless in the eyes of people. So in regards to criminal behavior, court, etc., for him to be blameless in front of everyone. Right? So for him to be blameless. Right? And this is very, very important because again, we're going through the lens of people. Lens of people seeing us as the ambassador of Christ. Yeah? So our leaders need to be blameless. All right? This one, the second one, the husband of one wife. Okay? The husband of one wife, this is, again, so as we all know now, the office of the bishop is you have to be celibate. This happened after when? Council of Nicaea. Yeah? So before then, if you were married, you were married. If you weren't married, you weren't married. It was totally fine. But so St. Paul was talking that if they were married, they would only have one wife. Why was this? Why did St. Paul have the need to mention this? What was big in Ephesus at the time? Correct. It was from the pagans, yeah? So polygamy was huge. It was very, very, very big. So St. Paul needed to mention this in order to remind them that, no, this is the faith that you're following. This is the law that you're following. And to this day, we follow this law. Yeah? To this day, we follow this law. So it was to remind the people that even though you've come to the faith with your beliefs or things that you might find not religious but cultural, yeah? Okay? No, this is how we select and choose our leaders, our bishops. All right? So now the priest is still allowed to marry, but the bishop and the pope is one who dedicates his whole life to God. Yeah, so he's celibate. Temperate and sober-minded. Why? Why is this? Why is this important? To be temperate and sober-minded. Why? For a leader of the church to make good, wise, what? He needs to make what? Huh? It's unbiased, unshakable, but without being changed or swayed by things around him. Yeah? As we understand what's the sin of alcohol, what the sin of drunkenness do. It makes his mind not there. They're not able to think straight or in a manner to lead. They're swayed easy. They're easily what? Changed. They can change their mind so quickly. Yeah? Someone that talks, someone that is drunk will, 1 minute will want to fight you, the next minute is hugging you. Like nothing happened. They don't make sense. They don't make sense. So for the leaders of the church, this is a must. For them not to be able to be swayed or pushed by anything that they do. Right? So that their way of God and the way of truth is consistent throughout their service and throughout their ministry. But this is part of, again, being blameless. Just imagine this wasn't an issue. And then Abuna makes a decision when he is not all 100%. Yeah? And then 2 weeks later, don't worry about Abuna. Abuna wasn't all there to begin with. Like, how much problems would it cause? Like, how much issues would it cause? Yeah? It's about being blameless again. And then he talks about some good things now. Of good behavior, hospitable, able to teach. These are very, very, very important. Giving, this whole nature of being able to give is so, so important. First thing. Okay? Because what's one of the oaths that the priests and monks and bishops take? One of poverty. Yeah? Will not chase money. So that's the first thing. So they won't chase money. So they are not greedy. They need to be able to give freely. Not worry about it. Right? And you see this a lot. The priests have big pockets because they need to carry so they can give. It's very important. Hospitable. This is the nature of the church. The love language of the church. Hospitable. Giving. You hear it in Acts all the time. How the early church was this place for people to find refuge, love, kindness, food, shelter, whatever it needed. How hospitable the church is a reflection of the people inside of it. You can tell when you walk into a church how hospitable and how loving it is by their Father. All right? So when you go to visit someone, for example, and they let you in, they sit you down in in the nice chairs. They take off the mafrash and you sit in the nice, beautiful place, not in the living room where the TV is, one with no TV, with all the glassware. And how hospitable they are is a reflection of who? The people that raised them, their father. So is the church. Their father is the one that shows people how to be hospitable, shows them how to love, shows them how to care. This is so important. And the last one is that thing that ties everything together. Being loving and kind, but being able to teach so that the people may learn. That they may not just see, right? Not just see how the Father is and how He is to teach people, but to teach them in a way that they may learn as well. So that their words and actions may marry, may be of one mind. This is again critical. St. Paul was a great teacher. Timothy was a great teacher. You look at all these apostles in the early church, they were what? Great, great teachers. They just weren't servants, they were able to teach. So being in this office requires them to teach. Right? But we'll find something very different as we move on. Okay? And we'll talk about the house at the end. Why it's important to have the house in order. Then, in regards to a novice, who knows what a novice is? We've heard that word before many times. What is a novice? Pardon? New to the faith? Yeah. So for example, I'll give you an example that you guys will be very familiar with. You know the brothers at the monastery, the one that wear the blue and the white. They're called novices. But that's what they're called. Why are they called novice? Because they're new to the monastic life. And I'll share a quick story with. I was one time sitting with Abuna Musa Lantoni, and he was talking about the novice life. He was sitting there talking to us, and he was saying that at his time of a novice, they had the very, very strict rules. Yeah. They could only read the Bible and the Igbeya, and that's all they could read. They weren't allowed to read anything else. And I said to him, why? He said, because they didn't want us to be puffed up and have all this knowledge in our head that we could challenge those who are in front of us. Our period of being a novice was about obedience. Yeah? About being pushed and pushed, but being strong and being obedient to those who are giving us instruction. So when St. Paul was talking about the novice, not them, the bishop not being a novice, was because they needed to go through a time of trial, right? A time of being obedient to the faith. Because when we're new to something, we have this zeal, don't we? We have this zeal that we want to do everything, right? And then when someone tells us no, it's like, why are you telling me no for? We get put back and a bit upset. Why are you telling me no? Why can't I just do it? I've got all these ideas and I've got all these things that I want to do for the service. It shouldn't be a matter of telling me no. It should be, how can we do it? But this time of us being new to a service is actually a time for us where we should sit back, right, serve and be obedient. Because through the time that we learn and go through this obedience, we're actually able to understand the service in its complexity and its whole. Not in our eyes of being new. Because the hardest part of the service is actually when you're actually not doing it. It's behind the scenes. It's the grind. It's the prayer. It's when no one's there to help you. It's the tough things that make you ready for the service. It's not the easy part. Right? It's like doing the lesson is the easy part for Sunday school. Yeah? But it's the following up, calling, hanging out with them, praying for the service, preparing the lesson. It's all the little things that make the service hard. And that's why giving it the office of the bishop to a novice is something that's not done. Because he has to go through his period of preparation, a period of being tested, the period of having his zeal minimized. Yeah? Because when your zeal is minimized, what do? You pray. You go back to the things that gave you that zeal to begin with. You know? That reliance on God. So this is so, so, so important and so critical. That we're able to continually go back to the things that gives us that zeal, gives us that love for God. And the last bit is, moreover, he must have a good testimony among those who are outside, lest he fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. Why is this so important when this is for the church? Pardon? Why is this part, why is St. Paul so adamant about having a good reputation, not just inside the church, but outside the church as well? Why? Yeah, right? So there's that whole idea of me just being a good person inside church and not outside. So there's the whole element of that as well. But the biggest thing about it is that this is just a select, right? But so if you at that time saw St. Paul, right, what would you see? A man for the Christians, yeah? Someone that was strong in his faith, that was strong in his love for God. So his reputation was he was a good man, strong man, right? But then if someone was to take that office, yeah, it was a reflection of the people that he's leading, like you said. Someone that is not there to lead his people, who are going to look at him and go, what faith is this? It's a symbol. It's that strength. Right? When people saw Moses, Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, right? What did they see? They saw strength. Joseph, they saw strength. Yeah? Even though Joseph took a bit of time, but when he came to lead his people, he was what? They saw strength. And this is so, so, so important for us to understand. Is that these people weren't swayed by what people said about them, weren't swayed about how the world perceived them. It didn't get to their heads. For their love was for God. Their eyes were on God, not on themselves. Which then leads to the qualification of the deacons. Yeah? And this is, again, bit funny, how we go through the qualification of the bishop and the priest, yeah, the episcopals, the people that oversee the church, and to those who help in the church. And what you will notice here is that the qualification isn't much different, right? What does that say? If the top of the church, the people that lead the church, have a certain thing they need to qualify for this rank, and the people at the bottom, the deacons who serve the people, yeah, who are on the ground serving the people with their hands and doing everything for the church and the administration of the church, right? What does it say? That all, from top to bottom, have the same what? Expectation. Yeah? Have the same expectation. The expectation is to love and to serve the people of God. Love and to serve all who are there. And in the right of the church, for someone to be a pope or a bishop or a priest, they must start from where? The rank of deacon. They must serve as a deacon. Yeah? and they have to go through all the ranks before they're a priest. And before they become a bishop, they have to serve as a rank as a priest. And before they become Pope, what? They have to serve as a bishop. So they actually have to go through this ladder of service before they are elected to be leaders and the leader of our church. Which then makes you realize, those who were part of the deaconate, how important your role in the church is. Is that your role in the church is actually so important. It's not just a thing on a Sunday. It's not just a thing that, it's not just a liturgical output. I'm a deacon for liturgical reasons. No, that's not what it is. Those who are a deacon have actually given their life to God. The reader who teaches and proclaims the word of God. The subdeacon who what? Who protects the church, who gets the church ready for its services and feeds the poor. The deacon who administers the sacraments with the priest, who visits the sick, the poor and the needy, and they're under his care. That's what the deaconate is. It's not something that what is just a function that just gets done during liturgy. We can say liturgy is probably the smallest part of their job and the easiest part of their job. But if we make liturgy on a Sunday, pat on the back, good deacon, right? But rather than not understanding what the office pertains, being in the office of the deacon, of the priesthood, is to serve the people. So that's why you'll see, when we go through what qualifies him to be a deacon, you find it very similar. So we'll go through it quickly. Likewise, deacons must be reverent, not double-tongued, not given too much wine, nor greedy for money, holding the mystery of the faith with a pure conscience. But let these also first be tested, then let them serve as deacons, being found blameless. Likewise, their wives must be reverent, not slanderous, temperate, faithful in all things. Let deacons be the husbands of one wife, ruling their children and their own house as well. For those who serve well as deacons obtain for themselves a good standing and great boldness in the faith which is in Christ Jesus. So we go back to this whole idea of what qualifies them. And now we hear the first big part for the women. Yeah? And even that last week we went through it in detail with Father Josh, the office of the woman in the church. But it's mentioned here quite heavily how important the role of the wife is for the deacon who serves. Because as a family, they give their life to God. As a family, they serve the people of God. I got given one bit of advice when I was before I got married. And this father said to me, he goes, Anthony, your wife, looking after her is what's going to either bless or curse your service. Don't leave without taking her blessing. I failed the first 6 months, but no, but like he's saying that, like, don't leave without serving her first, because she's so important. She's so important for your service, so important. Because without her, you can't go to heaven. You can't go to heaven without her. So when St. Paul talks about the importance of the wife to the deacon, right, and to the bishop, he's saying that the importance of them being like-minded, being, yes, we are ready to serve. Yes, we're giving our life to God. Yes, we're on the same path. Yes, this is the way we're walking. So it's actually, when women say today, we do nothing. You are actually so critical to the church. And for St. Paul to mention this in his epistle, right, again, gives it its importance. If they weren't important, he wouldn't mention it. St. Paul was Hamuhaga. He knew he was straight shooter. That was his personality, that was his writing style. If he didn't like something, he would say it. If he thought something was wrong, he would say it. But him to lift the importance of the wife to the deacon and to the bishop or to the priest then makes us rethink the importance of this person in our lives. When we come to serve, it's us two serving. It's us two giving up time. It's us two doing what we can to bring our family together to God. That this unit of a family is able to serve God with its mystery of faithfulness. Because people say that. People always question our faithfulness to God, how much we love God, how much we care about God, why we follow these commandments. In a way, to the outside world, it is a mystery. It's something that it's incomprehensible. And for the deacon, and to understand this office, and to guard this mystery of how much they love God, is like putting this boundary up to keep its purity and its contentment. Yeah? It's beautiful to guard it. And this is why when they talk about the role of the subdeacon, the role of the reader, to teach and to protect the mysteries. But for them to protect the mysteries and to protect the church, they must protect their heart and their soul and their family first. They must guard that from the world outside. They must grab all those who are close to them, all those in the church, and what? Cover them from what the world is telling them. To keep this purity of the beauty of the church, the teachings of Christ, for them to show them the way. And the last bit is probably the most scary bit. Why? He says, for those who have served well as a deacon, obtain for themselves a good standing and great boldness in the faith which is Christ Jesus. For those who do the what? The work. Yeah? Why is it important for them doing the work? I read something that was really, really nice by St. Athanasius. Something very, very nice. And this puts in perspective the importance of those who serve and work in the church. What Moses taught, Abraham observed. What Abraham observed, Noah and Enoch acknowledged. Discriminating pure from impure and becoming acceptable to God. For able to, in this way, witness, knowing what he had learned from Adam, the one himself had learned from that Lord, who said, when he come at the end of the ages of the abolishment of sin, I give no new commandment to you, but an old commandment which you have heard from the beginning. I would say the first bit again, yeah? What Moses taught, Abraham observed. What we teach, our kids observe. Yeah? And what they observe, their friends acknowledge. So the role of this deaconate, the role of this church, the role of our service in the church is so important. Because what our father, the priest, teaches us, we observe and acknowledge. And it gets passed on from generation to generation to generation to generation. As we can see in the liturgy, how many things are done without words? Are done by just us observing. We have no idea why we're doing it. It's just something that we observe. Right? For example, I'll give you something that made me laugh, right? The greet one another with a holy kiss. Yeah? When I was a kid, all I saw was people just clapping hands. Yeah? And did I understand what was going on? I was observing. As a child, I was observing. Right? Or, you know, when you see a kid, for the first time they start kissing icons, do they know what they're doing? No. Or they do their matanya, the first matanya, or they start, what are they doing? They're observing. Right? And later on they acknowledge. So for our actions have to be a certain standard. And we might say this is unfair, or why are we getting judged in this way? It's because those close to us, and especially those who are young, will take that. Yeah? When we come late to church, the kids acknowledge that. They observe it and they acknowledge, why did they come late? It's okay to come late. Yeah? Or when they say it's not fast on a Wednesday and Friday, for them, why do I need to fast on a Wednesday and Friday? They'll use every action against us to, what? Wrong the church. To make up their own church in their own mind. But when it's done, when we leave the church in its beauty, they will come and exchange a holy kiss without understanding. They'll come kiss, yeah, the same picture without understanding. They'll come do a matanya before the altar without understanding. But in the same manner, they'll follow you in sin without understanding. In the same manner. But we decide and we choose what they follow. That's in our hands. We decide. So this is why it's so important for those who are in the church that are in these positions to be a certain type of character, to have this attitude, to be what? An ambassador of Christ. Yeah? An ambassador is someone that represents without change, without his own opinion. These are the law of my land. This is the law of my God. And this is what I will follow. So that is so, so important. So then when St. Paul then concludes and talks about the what? The house and the mystery of the house and how the person's house must be in good order. He's saying that as because those who come to lead the house of God will go back to their house and what? And lead their house as well. Right? Will lead their house as well. Because those who can lead their house and refuse to lead in church, or refuse to do their service at church, what? Bring themselves sin. The sin of not giving to God what He is due. The sin of not giving to God what He's given to you. Do we understand what that sin is? The sin of not giving God what is due to Him. Right? And I'll give you a small example. God has given us everything. Yeah, we agree? God has given us everything. And in this idea of giving us everything, He asks us to give back what He's given to us. Yeah? Those who, when we're doing the book of Malachi, right? I gave the example of what? Of the father, yeah? Of the father on Father's Day. Yeah? I gave that example. And the kid comes up to his dad, yeah, and says, Dad, can I please have $10? Because there's a Father's Day store at school, right? And I want to buy something. So the dad pulls out his wallet, gives his son $10, and goes to school and buy his dad the best gift he could buy with that $10. He wraps it up, makes it all nice, yada, yada, yada. Comes home, he goes, Dad, here's the present that I've given you. Dad opens up and acts, thank you, son, thank you, lovely, for giving me this present. I love it so much. But who paid for it? You know? It was the dad. That's what God does for us. We come back and we go, God, look, I've given you my time. I've given you my tithes. I've given you service. And He's like, thank you, but I've given you that already. Yeah? So when it's time for us to serve God, yeah, we take that responsibility with honor. It's not something that we take lightly. We take it with strength. We're proud. I'm serving God. I'm serving Him. I do everything with love. I do everything with patience. I do everything with kindness. Because why? Because that's what God gave me. That's what Christ has given to me. So when we're in those times when we say, why? What's the point of doing this? What's the point of going through with this? What's the point? Because it's there's times where we go, people are being ungrateful to us. No one appreciates what we do in the service. How many times have we not appreciated what God's given us? If God used the same stick we used to people, how miserable would our lives be? How miserable and horrible would our lives be? But because He is merciful, we are merciful. Because He is kind, we are kind. Because He is loving, we are loving. And this is the image that St. Paul was giving to Timothy about establishing his church in Ephesus. These are the people, these are the icons, these are the imagery, these are the people that we need to build your church upon. We can't falter from this. We can't falter from this. And we'll quickly finish up, and he says this. For those who have served well, these things I write, these things I write to you, though I hope to come to you shortly. But if I am delayed, I write so that you may know how you ought to conduct yourself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar, the ground of the truth. And without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God has manifested in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen by angels, preached among the Gentiles, believed in the world, received up in glory. Yeah. And that's where we ended there. And we see the importance of that. How St. Paul glorifies and acknowledges the what? The God and the church that we have. Right? The mystery of our church. The beauty of our church. Right? And without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. Great is the mystery of the godliness. So that we understand that the word and the church that we have is no small feat, but it's something given to us by God. And those who are chosen to teach and to live and to serve God, take that with honor. Take it with its beauty. Take it with its suffering. Take it with everything that it comes. And glory be to God forevermore. You turn off the stream? You turn it off? Christian? You turn it off? Yes. Any questions?